All right, Pluto's energy doesn't change. It still unearths things, it shakes things up, it reveals hidden information, there's intensity, but the sign that it's in is different. Aquarius, from a vibrational astrology perspective, is all about everyone having a seat at the table. We're all part of a network. No one is better than the other. We all have a role to play and a seat at the table. So if I had to pick a theme for 2025, because my private clients asking me, oh, what can I expect for the year ahead? By the people, for the people. Now, what does that mean? That means that people who may not have had a voice or a seat or a vote or access to certain things, be it information or resources, because Pluto is now moved into Aquarius, it's going to shake things up there, but in a different way. Capricorn was all about the structures. Those have been demolished and we're in the process of rebuilding. And you mentioned North Carolina. Our entire water system was eradicated during the storm, which happened, by the way, while Pluto was still in Capricorn. So let's look at this from the meta, okay? The water system here, the pipes, 1,800 miles of pipes in the city, they were old, they were brittle, they needed to be upgraded. Now, you can make the argument that, well, this is just very convenient and we're applying the Plutonic type of Plutonic Capricorn forecast to that. But let's break it out a little further. This storm unearthed all the weaknesses in the system. And what they did for 4-5 weeks after that, because that's how long we did not have running water, they rebuilt the entire infrastructure that delivered water. Well, that's Pluto in action, taking out the old, putting in new.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we're streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. The purpose of the show is to help you realize that you are not alone and that you are in control of your life. It doesn't matter where you came from or what your circumstances are. We've all experienced pain, suffering, hurt, abandonment, loneliness, and hopelessness. This show is here to help you turn those dark moments around and create a whole new you. Despite your success, have you felt lonely, angry, frustrated, or even suicidal? Do you long to be supported, recognized, and respected for who you are and not just the awards and accolades on your walls? You don't want to be known, identified, or remembered in a way that feels fraudulent because you achieved things out of obligation and not passion. Do you find yourself sitting quietly at lunch, listening to what lights you up, only to feel shame, fear, frustration, and resentment? Your inner turmoil and limiting beliefs surface, making you feel not good enough and afraid of doing something different. You've read the books, you've attended the seminars and practiced new concepts and principles, and yet you still find yourself in the same rut. The lies you tell yourself perpetuate a cycle of disappointment. You say you'll change, but your self-limiting beliefs keep running the show, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. As a certified coach, I empower you to become your authentic self. My Soul Journey course program aligns you with your true self and guides you to find your soul vision, helping you discover your purpose in life. I provide tools to step into your true magnificence and remember who you are. If you are interested in learning more about the course, contact me at bravetv@kathleenmflanagan.com. Each week, I start the show with the sound of the tuning forks, bringing in love, happiness, and balance. This sets the tone for both myself and my guest. Let's begin. Mike Spremulli's approach to astrology is both unique and practical. He combines his expertise as a therapist and workplace personality expert with modern, cutting edge, scientifically validated astrology interpretation techniques. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. It's great to be back here with you.
And it's great to see you again. And I know you've had one heck of a journey this past year in North Carolina with the flooding. Oh my
Yes,
God.
yes, we did. I'm happy to report that my family is safe and sound. We had minimal home damage, but this community is going to be rebuilding for a long time to come. So, for your listeners out there, please don't forget about North Carolina. Now we need tourists. So come and visit.
Well, I know that we've got this major, amazing event happening in the universe right now with our planets, 6 planets aligning with the seventh one that's supposed to be joining, I think, before sometime the end of the month. And I have tried to find research on what this means on an astrological level and what that means to each and every one of us, or as our sign predicts. I know you're totally different in how we interpret this, but I really wanted to get some more clarity because, I know that this was a year of change. I know that without us, but I did not expect it to be a bang coming out the door. You know what I mean? I mean, it is like
Yeah,
these first 14 days have been, oh my frigging God. And, the naysayers, and you need God or Jesus or, the devil, who are you worshiping? I mean, come on, seriously, people, let's get real about this because I'm wondering if part of this alignment has to do with this because I know our mother, Earth, still protects us. Because when you think of the devastation, there's so little loss of life.
yeah.
And I know that there's something, I know that you probably have a really interesting spin on all of this. And I would so love to get some more insight and clarity so I know how to navigate through these changing waters as well.
Sure. Well, lots to discuss, as always. There's always something happening in the sky. So let's hold off just for a second on the parade of planets, which of course we're going to get to because that's about to hit its peak around January 21st. But I need to speak a little bit about the age of Aquarius because we're
Okay.
in it, like it or not. So for those who may follow astrology, and even if you don't, you probably heard that Pluto left Capricorn for good in our lifetime in November. I believe it was November 19th to be exact. So we got to look at the energy behind the planets because in vibrational astrology, which is the type of astrology that I practice, you're right. It looks at things a little bit differently than traditional systems. I'm not saying this is better. It's just different. And the way we look at things is what is the underlying energy process that's at play? Well, the energy of Pluto is very much compulsive and intense. I like to describe Pluto as dog with a bone like energy. When Pluto gets a hold of something, it doesn't let go. It wants what it wants when it wants it. So when Pluto was in Capricorn for the past 18 or so years, it blew up a whole bunch of structures. Pluto also unearths hidden information. It exposes secrets. It exposes charlatans. Well, go back and look over the past 18 or so years, starting around 2008 with the financial crisis, and look at what has come to light.
Yeah.
Because the old systems, the old structures, whether it's the patriarchy or limited few controlling resources, all of that has been kind of exposed to say, all right, here's what we got. And it's probably not working that well anymore, which sets the stage then for a rebuilding because some equate Pluto to be like this bulldozer that comes in and levels everything that you can see, but then it unearths things that we don't see. So if you think of a bulldozer going into an excavation site, and if it digs below the surface, you might find artifacts that are thousands of years old. The deeper you dig, the more stuff you're going to find. Well, it went through this cycle in Capricorn for the longest time. And now it's out of Capricorn. And unless any one of us lives 248 years, we're not going to see Pluto in Capricorn anytime. Because,
Oh,
and the reason for that is Pluto is a slow moving planet. It's an outer planet. So The outer planets move very, very slowly, and they affect us generationally. And it takes Pluto 248 years to go around the entire zodiac. So it spends about 18 years in each sign. It
Wow.
just stuck its nose into Aquarius. So now we got to look at what's been going on, and it goes beyond the first of the year. This actually started somewhat toward the last couple of months, the end of November and all through December. We got to go and see now. All right, Pluto's energy doesn't change. It still unearths things, it shakes things up, it reveals hidden information. There's intensity, but the sign that it's in is different. Aquarius, from a vibrational astrology perspective, is all about everyone having a seat at the table. We're all part of a network. No one is better than the other. We all have a role to play and a seat at the table. So if I had to pick a theme for 2025, because my private clients asking me, oh, what can I expect for the year ahead? By the people, for the people. Now, what does that mean? That means that people who may not have had a voice or a seat or a vote or access to certain things, be it information or resources, because Pluto has now moved into Aquarius, it's going to shake things up there, but in a different way. Capricorn was all about the structures. Those have been demolished and we're in the process of rebuilding. And you mentioned North Carolina. Our entire water system was eradicated during the storm, which happened, by the way, while Pluto was still in Capricorn. So let's look at this from the meta, okay? The water system here, the pipes, 1,800 miles of pipes in the city, they were old, they were brittle, they needed to be upgraded. Now, you can make the argument that, well, this is just very convenient and we're applying the Plutonic type of Plutonic Capricorn forecast to that. But let's break it out a little further. This storm unearthed all the weaknesses in the system. And what they did for 4-5 weeks after that, because that's how long we did not have running water, they rebuilt the entire infrastructure that delivered water. Well, that's Pluto in action, taking out the old, putting in new. All right, but that happened while Pluto was in Capricorn. Now it's in Aquarius. So what are we seeing? We have things that have happened since the beginning of the year with, right now, the day that we're recording this, the TikTok ban is imminent and people are freaking out about that. However, people are saying, all right, fine. You want to ban TikTok? We're going to go to this app or that app where we can have a voice, and people are organizing and they're able to then still have access to that type of information. If we look at the tragedy that happened to the United Healthcare CEO, and I want to make it very clear, I am not advocating violence in any context, but what that has done now is that has opened up this discussion of healthcare being front and center and not being accessible to all. And I'll give you a little anecdotal story because this happened, the next thing I'm going to share with you, once Pluto moved into Aquarius, and this is in the news, you can look it up, Blue Cross and Blue Shield in the state of Missouri and one other state. I'm not sure of the other, but you can look it up. You'll find it pretty easily. They had a memo come out shortly after this United Healthcare tragedy saying, if anesthesia for a procedure goes over what we deem to be the appropriate amount of time, the patient is on the hook for it. This is, you can research it. So yeah, so it's like, okay, if there's a complication or this or that, or maybe we needed to wait for a piece of equipment and it goes beyond X number of time, we're not going to pay for it. Well, guess what? That came on the heels of this United Healthcare situation where everyone is obviously very upset, and you've got P.S. They ended up rescinding that decision. That is Aquarian energy in action, because should that have happened some other time, it might not have gotten the intention and the intensity of making things accessible to everyone. So that's one example. There's lots of things that have happened going to where people get information, how people access healthcare. it's we're heading into this path now where there's going to be a shift at a global level of more equality across the board. Now, that comes with a caveat. It's not all going to be sweetness and light. The United CEO healthcare thing, that's a horrible way to kick off that change, but it did. You've got the fires that are happening. Obviously, nobody wants a fire to rip through their neighbor. But these are the things that it's like clearing out the old structures and systems and ideas and beliefs to make way for the new. So I realize I went off into a rabbit hole here, but I just wanted to start with that because that's sort of the theme that we can expect, not just for this year, but for the next 18 years. I'll give you one more example. Let me give you one more.
That makes sense about what's happening in California because look at the insurance that they're doing, and then look at the power lines that weren't dealt with, and look at they didn't have an evacuation plan, and look at that the money was misappropriated. I mean, you just my brain just went because I knew I could see it, but I didn't realize this was Plutonian energy. So please go on with your next point because it's like, whoa.
So, when here's another example of how Pluto is kind of in some ways wreaking havoc, but another way paving the way for people to have more control of their own destiny. Up until probably, I don't know, I'm dating myself a little bit now, the 90s, it was not all that common for physicians to give you your labs. I mean, they'd give them to you if you asked for them, but things have kind of changed now. We all have these portals that we can log into and whatnot. Okay, that's cool. But here's the neat thing. As we're in the infancy of AI, now just about everybody who has access to AI, whether it's free or paid or whatnot, you can take your lab results, run them through AI and say, give me a breakdown of my values based on what's considered to be normal limits and let me know what might need to be addressed. And you end up getting very detailed explanations. Now, obviously, you're not going to cut your physician out of the equation, but those type of conversations where a doc would go line by line over your medical results, they're not going to do it. They don't have the time, but AI will. So that's another example of the Aquarian energy making things accessible to the masses. And that's where we're headed. And yes, there are going to be some bumps along the way, but once things start to get cleared out and the newness of equality and equity starts to take hold, you're going to see those type of activities happen more frequently than not. And it's a very exciting time as well as a very disruptive time, but that's kind of where we are from a global perspective. And I wanted to kind of get that out on the table.
Okay, so one real quick question then.
Sure.
How long will it take before we start seeing some of the massive changes on a global where there's more equality happening? Is that going to be a little bit further down the line? Are we going to start seeing a little bit sooner? Are there going to be lawsuits like California fires thing? What do you think?
The golden answer is it depends. It depends on what we're talking about.
Of course.
So, and here's what I mean by that. That's not a cop-out answer. You're already seeing this now in some small steps. The TikTok thing is front and center. And I saw recently on TikTok, they're saying, all right, here's what we need to do. On this date, I don't even remember, and I'm not advocating this, I'm just reporting what I've seen. We all need to get on the government websites at a certain time and let them know we are not going to stand for this. If everybody who's on TikTok logged into the government you just went to a government website, it's going to crash it. It's going to let people know, hey, there are people here who this is impacting. So you start to see those little events. We're seeing it now. As far as the longer term thing, it's going to take some time to play out. I'm not going to say it's going to take 18 years, but remember, Pluto just stuck its nose inside Aquarius. I think it's at like 1 degree in there, and a sign is 30 degrees. We got a ways to go to start seeing all of this kind of shake out long term, but there are going to be some quick short-term wins along the way, without a
Okay,
doubt.
cool. Okay, good. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break.
Absolutely.
Are you ready to step into your true potential? Kathleen Flanagan's Get Into Alignment session helps you break through blocks, balance your energy, and align with your highest self. Experience clarity, purpose, and flow like never before. Visit KathleenMFlanagan.com and unlock the power of living in alignment today. Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network, and we have Michael Spremulli inside the room with us today, and we are now going to move from Pluto and what that means with the planets coming into alignment.
Yes, there is a lot of planetary activity hanging out together over the next couple of months, and I'm going to hit some of the highlights. But let's first talk about, because this kind of tips this off a little bit, yesterday, we had a full moon in the sign of Cancer at 5:26 p.m. Eastern Time. So let me ask you a question here, and this is not a leading question. Over the past 24 hours or so, how have you been feeling?
I'm actually feeling a little better than I was, because I was like totally messed up in my head and depressed, almost feeling like, hopelessness, the California fires, like everything was just felt like it was a big weight on my shoulders. And then this morning I started feeling like everything's going to be okay, and it's progressively getting better.
So
like I'm feeling more stable.
So here's what's going. This last full moon, which happened last night, and remember the effects of a full moon, they linger for a week and change or so. It was quite intense. Now, when I say intense, it doesn't equate to bad. It just means intense. I felt personally very on edge yesterday and all throughout the evening, because here's the deal. The moon went full in the sign of Cancer. Well, Cancer is about, from a vibrational astrology perspective, protection, protecting ourselves, our family, our property. And with the full moon being inside of Cancer, it heightens all those emotions. So you and everyone else I've been speaking with over the past couple of days, they've been feeling it building up, building up. It's like this pressure. They can't really put it into words, this angst. Part of that had to do with the full moon in Cancer. But in addition to that, as vibrational astrologers, we don't just look at that placement. We look to see what else the moon was connecting with or aspecting with during the time it went full. Well, here are the planets that are involved. The moon, of course, but the sun, Mars, and Pluto.
Oh,
That's a lot of energy. So when you combine sun, moon, Mars, and Pluto, moon is our feelings and emotions and our history. Mars is the planet of action, where we feel like, I got to do something. I got to make something happen. Pluto is the intensifier, as you know. You put all that together, and the sun, because it's involved in the opposition to make the moon full, that's also involved. And the sun is responsible for shining a spotlight on whatever it touches. So I've been hearing from people kind of building up to this full moon. They just feel anxious or tired or irritable. I was all those things yesterday, and I'm still a little bit of that today, but you can feel the shift when the moon starts to kind of move along and those aspects start to weaken. So this is technically kind of like the pre-show for this parade of planets. So lots of energy, lots of intense, uncompromising energy, where we may have been. Last night I could not get to sleep. I had too many thoughts going through my head.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. And that is the Pluto Mars connection, because Mars is, I got to do something. And Pluto was like, oh, yes, you do. And it adds fuel to the fire. And it was like ping pong in my head with this idea, that idea, this worry, this concern, this. It's like, oh, enough already. That's what was going on yesterday. Okay, so that's kind of starting off this alignment of this procession of planets. Now, the planets that are all involved in this lineup, and what that means is, if you go out in the sky and look at around dusk, and it's going to vary based on your location. I know you have a global audience, so you'll have to kind of coordinate locally, but shortly after dusk, you're able to see with the naked eye, for the most part, the following planets: the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. That's a
Wow.
big display of planets. Now, let me give you a little help here, and I have no financial affiliation or connection with this app. You may want to get an app called either Sky Guide or Sky Tonight. And here's why I suggest that. And I think one of them is free. One of them may cost $4. Do your due diligence and see what works for you. But here's why that's cool. Because with the technology, which Aquarius is also connected with, expansion of ideas and technology and whatnot, you can hold your phone up to the sky and it superimposes whatever is in the sky and labels it for you so that you know what planet is what star is what constellations you're looking at. And even if you're not into astrology and you're just into astronomy, it's a great app so that you can visualize, gee, I wonder what that bright spot is. The app will tell you this. Okay. So these are the planets that are kind of all coming together in alignment, but they're not all aligning at the same time. Just because we see them in the sky from an astrological perspective, certain planets form aspects at certain times, and then they dissolve those aspects and move on to form other aspects. But there's a lot that are kind of hanging out together. So if we fast forward a little bit to January 17th and 18th, you have Venus and Saturn that will appear very, very close together. In astrology, we call them a conjunction. And you'll be able to see those pretty well just after sunset. All right. Now, what also is involved, even though it's not full anymore, the moon doesn't need to be full in order for it to aspect. That's just from our perception here on Earth. We have the moon, Venus, and Saturn all connecting together between the 17th and 18th. Well, what's that all about? That's about being loyal in relationships. The moon regulates our feelings and our history and our patterns. Venus regulates what we are attracted to. And I often say that can be a person, place, or a thing. It regulates how beauty is recognized for us. And Saturn takes out all the nonsense. So around the 17th or 18th, you might feel this desire to cut out all the BS, for lack of another term. In other words, the light may go on and say, I'm in a relationship, and it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a friend or family or what have you, but romance certainly rolls up under this. And you may realize, I've been the real deal in this relationship, but I don't feel like I'm getting that in return. Because what Saturn does, Saturn's power is it helps strip things down to the core, down to the bone. It gets rid of the glitz, the glamour, and it helps us focus on what is real. So because Moon, Venus, and Saturn are all coming together, this is about dedication to family and loved ones, the ability to focus on what's really important. The $5,000 handbag doesn't matter. Is this person going to be with me through the good and the bad? So some of that may start coming up as we approach this connection. And that begins around the 17th and 18th, because when Venus and Saturn get together, it's looking for an honest love. We're not, think the opposite of any of the housewife shows. They're all preoccupied with, material things. And I'm not knocking material possessions. We all like nice things, but that's the focus. At least that's what they edit it to be. Saturn isn't interested in that. Saturn wants the heartfelt connection. And that tends to surface when Saturn connects with Venus, and then Moon adds that additional depth to the equation. So keep an eye out for that around January 17th and 18th. Now, you'll still see these other planets hanging around, but just because you see them in the sky close together doesn't necessarily mean they're in some sort of aspect astrologically. When I was running the calculations prior to meeting with you, I was going through each of the days from now until the end of February, and I'm looking at the strongest connections. There are connections happening every day that aren't really significant. We're looking at the significant ones because that's what helps people get a handle on how to navigate this energy. So that kind of gets us moving in the right direction. The next big date that you want to keep an eye out for is January 21st. That's when the planetary parade, for lack of a better term, reaches a notable alignment, because you've got 6 planets in 3 different combinations. So let me break this down. So the 21st, again, of January is when we start to see these connections. And we have the sun, moon, and Pluto all connected. Well, when Pluto shows up, it's going to be intense. So I'm telling folks around that time, just because we have a date, all that means is when the energy is the strongest. Energy, like anything else, it starts out very slow, kind of builds up, and then it kind of fades out. So you'll start to feel some of these energetic shifts, maybe a day, possibly 2 days before, and it'll linger a couple of days after. So when I give dates, all that means is that's when the energy is the strongest, because there's very little orb between the connections of the planets. So Sun, Moon, Pluto, get ready for some more emotionality and compulsivity, because that's what the Moon and Pluto do. Moon is emotions. You add in Pluto, it adds intense emotions. And that could go either way. That could be you fall in love with someone head over heels, or it could be that you feel very anxious and distraught because you found out that your job may be becoming eliminated or downsized. Expect strong emotionality around this time. And this even is more true when you have to convey some type of information. So let's say you have some news or something you want to share with people, and you feel like you're sitting on a firecracker. Oh, I just can't wait to tell someone about this. I can't wait to tell something about, it could be a good thing or a negative thing. And we come in, if left unchecked, the Sun, Moon, Pluto energy is like, let me tell you what I got going on in my life. And the person who you're talking about is, what are you talking about? I just had a meteor hit my house, and you're coming in talking about all your stuff. So it gives us a little bit of a warning to be aware of how our emotions impact other people around this time. It doesn't mean that we're not entitled to feel our emotions. Of course, everyone is. But we need to be cautious that we don't impose what we're feeling onto others, because they're going to have their own stuff going on. So it's something to be aware of.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break,
Absolutely.
and we'll continue this when we get back.
Ready to discover the deeper purpose of your life? Kathleen Flanagan's Soul Journey course guides you through profound spiritual awakening, helping you connect with your higher self and unlock the wisdom within. Embark on a journey of transformation and self-discovery. Visit KathleenMFlanagan.com and start your soul journey today.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we're streaming on the Brave TV network. And I have Michael Spremulli in the room with us today. And he is now going to continue with the next thing that the planets are going to do that's going to aspect.
And this is happening on January 21st as well. You've got 3 major aspects happening on the 21st. So no matter how you slice it, a lot of energy happening that day, and it's good to have a heads up about it so that we know how to manage it. We were just chatting during the break that knowing what's coming helps us prepare. I mean, look at the storms and the fires. If you know that something's coming, you at least have a little bit of a heads up. Doesn't mean that you may not get knocked around a little bit, but at least knowing it helps you better navigate it. So the next combination is Sun, Venus, Pluto, also connecting on the 21st. Well, this sparks passionate about whatever you're dealing with. It could be your work. It could be a relationship. It could be passionate about redesigning your home. Venus regulates what we are attracted to. Pluto has that compulsion, and the sun again shines the spotlight on it. So during these planetary aspects, it's important to be aware that we might be a little obsessive and jealous during this time, because with Pluto and Venus together, it's like, no, that's mine. That's my significant other. That's my house. That's my art, or whatever the case might be. So the good news about this, and remember, it's all energy at the end of the day. It's like ingredients. You can take ingredients and make the most delicious recipe. You can also make something that's inedible. So energy by itself is not inherently good or bad. So here's a good application of the Sun, Venus, Pluto combination, and that's the optimal time to get involved with a humanitarian cause. Why?
Mm.
Because we've got this intensive dog with a bone like energy from Pluto. Venus regulates what we are attracted to, and that doesn't get limited to the physical world. Harmony, cooperation, anything that has some beauty attached to it, mercy, helping people out. That's very Venetian because it enables us to then work on bringing this beauty to life. So, yes, we could get a little obsessive and jealous, but it's also an optimal time to help out where we can because that energy is active. It makes it easy for us to do that. So, for example, maybe you live in California and you go and volunteer someplace. If you don't live there, maybe you send money from Antarctica to California. It doesn't have to be in the same physical space, but it's about capitalizing on this energy to want to do something. Because remember, Pluto does not like to kind of sit by itself and eat bonbons. It's like, let's go take that bulldozer out and make something happen. Now, here's one more combination, and this is a 4-planet combination. So now we have 4 ingredients in the recipe. And still on January 21st, Sun, Moon, Neptune, that's the new one, and Pluto. So the 21st out of this parade is kind of the midpoint of it. It starts, right around yesterday, the 13th. But you've got the most activity happening on this day. So Sun, Moon, Neptune, Pluto is about having this strong internal drive to follow what is idealistic for you. Neptune regulates what we value as like the ideal situation. And I may have used this analogy the last time we spoke. And that is back in the 90s, I think, I'm dating myself. There was a phrase that was going around when we really like something, we'd say, oh, the cheesecake at that restaurant is, quote, to die for. Or this car is to die for. This purse, this, that. Neptune is our to die for. What is idealistic for you as an individual is what I encourage all the listeners to ask themselves. For some people, it's pretty basic. I wish I had a lot of money. When we start to move beyond that, it's, hey, I wish I have a house someplace in the woods where I can contemplate life and discover the meaning of life, et cetera, et cetera. For other people, it's, I want to go to the Super Bowl. For someone else, it's, I want to go to Europe. Well, whatever it is that you are Neptunian about, whatever is magical and idealistic, that's a good day to put some plans into action to help move you closer to whatever you're excited about and whatever's magical for you. And that differs from every person. So it's a busy time. There's a lot of energy that is flowing, but as you see here, there's different ways we can work with that energy. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to book a trip to France if that's where you ideally want to go, but maybe you start doing some research that day to figure out, well, what are the rates like in France at different times of the year, so that you can then begin to get a plan together to figure out when would be an optimal time to visit. So the other thing that this can bring up is an interest in mysticism, imagination, and spiritual topics, because Neptune and Pluto together, and then you add the moon to it, that's highly emotional and real deep stuff. Remember, Pluto knocks things down, but it also can go deep, 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 deep. So during this time frame, you might end up coming away with some observations or mental connections that may not have existed before. Those aha moments are very prone to happen when you have a moon, Neptune, Pluto aspect. And then remember, the sun has one job. All the planets and signs and houses in VA have one job. They each regulate a particular type of energy. But the sun, think of it like a, what are those things at the coastline? I'm just blanking out here. Lighthouse. There we go. The lighthouse turns around and it shines a very fixated beam of light as it goes around the coastline. So when the sun is involved with any of this energy, it then will shine a light on it so that it's front and center. And anything else really isn't as important as what the light is being shined on. So with all of these, sun, moon, Pluto, sun, Venus, Pluto, sun, moon, Neptune, Pluto, the sun is bringing all of these elements into the light of day so that you can't not see it. And that is very important to keep in mind. There's nothing forcing anyone to take action on anything, but the sun illuminates it and it makes it current, front and center. And at the very least, it heightens some curiosity within us. And at its very best, these can be used as a catalyst to then pursue what is truly important to us.
So we're basically going to be hitting every aspect of ourselves is going to be up front and in our face on the 21st. And we're just going to decide which is the most important for us to go down. Well, if I get to make that choice, you know where I'm going? I'm going where Neptune is.
Well,
that's where I want to go.
Exactly. What's magical to you, absolutely. And here's the other piece that goes along with that. Because the moon is involved with two out of these three aspects, it's got to have a soulful feeling to it. It's not about, oh yeah, I want to go get a new car or some material thing. When the moon is present, if we didn't have the moon, we'd have no memory, because the moon regulates our patterns, our memories, our history, anthropology, how we originated from our family of origin. And if there was no moon, none of that would exist. We wouldn't have these feelings, habits, and patterns. So when the moon is involved, expect that feeling of the soul being stirred. And then because Pluto and Neptune are sitting there with it, that brings up the ideal, and Pluto can clear the way for us to further move down the lines of those pursuits. But with the moon's involvement, it's got to hit us at our core or we're not interested. It's not about having a sale at the latest boutique. It's more deep and more ingrained in our cosmic DNA. All right, let's talk about the very last component. Now, remember, these planets kind of hang around for a little while, but in late February, we get another arrival showing up here. And this is on the 28th of February. So, these planets will be dancing around. You'll see them in the sky if you use those apps and what have you, as I mentioned. But on the 28th of February, here's what's going on. We've got this conjunction, and it's pretty tight too, between Mercury, the moon, Mercury, and Neptune. And you got a little bit of Saturn in there. It's not quite as strong, but let's focus on moon, Mercury, and Neptune. Well, the moon we've talked about, Neptune we talked about, Mercury we haven't spoken about yet. So Mercury regulates ideas. It helps us connect thoughts and ideas, and it does so quickly. It brings us those aha mental moments. So around this period, a few days before and after, your imagination may be sparked. Your intuition may be on fire. Why? Because Mercury brings ideas, Neptune makes them magical, the moon makes them emotional and soulful. And in some ways, people look at vibrational astrology and they say, oh, this is so complicated. If you know other astrology systems, it can be, because you have to kind of unlearn a little bit of what the other systems talk about. But if you're new to astrology, VA is a great place to start, because what we do is simply blend the energetic characteristics of what is involved. And if you know the core meanings of what all of these things do, you can then easily see how that energy gets modified. So strong imagination and intuition. This is a great time for anything that has to do with writing fiction, understanding poetry, literature, things that are magical. That's an opportune time to plug into those type of activities. But even if you have none of those pursuits on your radar, it's a time to let your imagination and intuition run wild and trust it, because literally the planets are in alignment where this energy is flowing easily to be able to connect your emotions, your thoughts, and what is ideal for you. And that's kind of how this rounds it out. That kind of lingers a little bit into early March, but it's an action-packed few weeks here with different cycles kind of moving in and out. And then the planets kind of spread out a little bit. And even if you know nothing about astrology or really don't care about astrology, it's a sight to behold to go out and see these planets in the sky so close together, because there's a lot of illumination out there. A lot of times, depending on where you live, you may not see much, but there's so many planets coming together, even in highly populated areas, you could probably get a glimpse of what's going on. And if you can get away from city lights, it's really breathtaking. I went out last night a little bit because I couldn't sleep and looked up and kind of saw where things were at. And it's fascinating. It's just really awe-inspiring to see these celestial bodies coming together, almost forming a little convention in the sky.
Well, I had my business partner told me he went out and saw the alignment starting a couple of days ago, and I haven't seen it because he said you just need to go, I think, into the northwestern skies is where I need to look. So tonight I think I might just go ahead and do it, because I've been wanting to do it, because he said that it's really cool to see and it's really bright, and we're not under clouds right now, which is a good thing because we've been in and out of clouds lately. But
well, here's the other thing to keep in mind too. The moon was just full. So the moon throws a whole lot of light. As the moon starts to recede, and I'm checking my watch here, it's still going to be pretty bright, but over the next few days, it's going to start to wane. And then the surrounding planets and then a whole bunch of stars that are not relevant to our discussion here, you'll start to be able to see them more easily once that moon starts to go back into a waning crescent, and it's easier to see. And that's where the app really comes in handy, because when you download one of these apps, you can just kind of hold it up to the sky and scan it, and it superimposes what you're looking at, from the moon to the sun. And here's the neat thing about this app. You can go out there now and see where stuff is positioned. You can't see anything because the sun is out during the light of day, but there's planetary activity 24/7. We just can't see it because the sun is occluding anything that you would normally see that's off in the distant, especially if it's a little small speck that we have trouble seeing at night. You're certainly not going to see it during the day.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break.
Feeling overwhelmed? Take a moment to reconnect with your inner peace. Join Kathleen Flanagan's powerful de-stress meditation designed to help you release tension, calm your mind, and restore balance. Just a few minutes can transform your day. Visit KathleenMFlanagan.com and start your journey to tranquility today.
It was brutal yesterday. Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and I've got Mike Spremulli in the room with us today. So, Mike, what would be one piece of advice that you would recommend to help people navigate these very intense energies coming in?
This may sound trite, but it is true, and that is take a breath. There is a lot of emotion that is stirred up right now and will continue to be stirred up. But with emotion comes power. So even though it may not feel all that great, realize that number one, it's not going to last forever. And number two, how can you take that emotion by taking a breath and then channeling it into something, whether it is a creative pursuit or a relationship pursuit or whatever it might be. You can go back and re-listen to all the things we spoke about. Take a breath, realize that this is not going to be around forever, and realize that this energy can be molded and utilized for your benefit, but you have to be the one to take the action. Astrology does not cause us to do things. It's simply a weather report letting us know what the cosmic weather is like and when it is optimal for us to engage in certain activities.
I think that's a great piece of advice because, when you're walking around like this past week, I'm just beside myself in this angst and wondering what it is, beating myself up, thinking nobody cares about me.
Right.
I was in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not normal for me. And yet I was in it. And now knowing what's coming, I don't have to go down this, self-sabotage or belittle or shame myself because I'm a failure or whatever you think, because it makes sense that Pluto's digging garbage up. It's making me see things. I get that. But this makes it easier to navigate. And since there's going to be this element of me wanting the book thing, because I started my fourth book, just so you know, and I'm going to be
Oh,
bringing
wow.
out some really
Congratulations.
interesting things. Yeah, that's coming out. That's new knowledge that'll be
Yep.
coming. So I'm like, oh, good. Maybe this will be that opportunity to continue, because right now in this emotional state, kind of hard to write.
Well,
But
what's interesting? That whole point about being able to plug into the Mercury and Pluto, I think you're going to find that later in the month, you're going to be able to just dig in. And it's like not even know where the information is coming from, because the intensity of Pluto will help connect the thoughts with Mercury. Actually, that's in February, but it actually pulls all that together. And it's like you're doing the prep work now so that you can be on the launch pad when it's time to really just get it out on paper.
I love that idea. I truly love that idea. So how can people get a hold of you?
Sure. And I provide private consultations, one-on-one astrological interpretations from a VA perspective, easily found at Blue Ridge Astrology. That's blueridgeastrology.com. I'm also on all the major socials. I do daily forecast for free. And if you go to the main page of my site, you can download for free the 2025 lunar lookup table, which gives you all the full and new moon dates, retrogrades. It's a good thing to kind of keep on your desk so you know what's coming down the road. Again, that's at blueridgeastrology.com.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Michael, for being with me on the show today. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you have weathered North Carolina
Thank you.
storms.
Thank you. Us
Um,
too.
I know I know that the rebuild is still out there. I know a lot of people out there that are still they're rebuilding, and they
Yeah.
didn't lose everything, but it took a while for the water to come back, and they're
Oh,
sharing the
yeah.
stories. So, I still send lots of light and love to you and your family in that
We
part of
we
the
we
world.
accept.
Yeah,
We accept.
because it can be very challenging, and God knows what's happening in California, what's going to be coming out of all of that with those poor people as well. I
Let me just
mean,
add one little sliver. A natural disaster changes you. It has changed me. So anyone who's listening to this who knows someone in any type of natural disaster, cut them some slack, because it reshuffles your priorities.
I believe that. I really truly believe
Yeah.
that. That's why my heart is just out to these people, and listening to the generational, they lived in these houses for
No,
generations,
I know.
and everything is gone. And what does that tell you about, the value is in people, it's the values in you, it's not our
Yep.
possessions. And do I wish that on anyone? No, I don't. But it happened for a reason, and they're obviously out to do great things or make a great shift to help
Yeah.
our planet take it to the next evolution. And that's
Yeah.
that's the positiveness that I wish and hope for what's happened to both the East Coast and now our West Coast. So
Well,
again,
thank
thank you so much, Michael, for being here. I really do appreciate it, and I will find a way to bring you back on again, because I just love having you on my show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Always a pleasure, and look forward to connecting again in the future.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for being here with us today. I hope you learned a lot and how to navigate some of the challenging energies that may be coming up, especially if it's going to be hitting our emotions, because those are the hardest things to usually navigate, is that emotional stuff that comes up. I know when I get cranky, it's usually when the moon is doing something to me. And I'll take total responsibility that I called that a victim statement. But anyways, I do want to thank you for being here. If you liked anything about the show, please feel free to pass on the link to friends and family, like and subscribe so you can be notified when the next show arrives. If you're struggling with anything, feel free to contact me at Bold Brave TV, bravetv at KathleenMFlanagan.com. My books, Dancing Souls, The Call, The Dark Night of the Soul, and Awakened, are on Amazon.com and KathleenMFlanagan.com. I also have a free de-stress meditation on the Kathleen M. Flanagan site, and a list of my services. And I want to thank you for being here. I hope you all have a fabulous week, and God bless you.